was growing up with Dr. Nkrumah?
Okay, I didn't exactly grow up with him because obviously the coup happened, the illegal overthrow, I should say, um, in 66, and I was about 5 years old. That was the last time I saw him. After the illegal overthrow, we went to Cairo, our mother and my siblings, and Osajifo went to Guinea. And 6 years later, he passed on.
What do you
So
remember?
we can't say that I knew him as a man. Of course, I remember some events. You know, I have some flashbacks. I remember some assassination attempts on his life, especially the one that happened in the garden of Flagstaff House where we were living, 1964. You know, when there was an attempt to assassinate him. Um, and unfortunately, his trusted bodyguard, Salifo Dagati, died on the spot. Um, so I remember him coming into the house with his clothes covered in blood. I, of course, also remember the day of the coup, 24th of February 1966. And then I just have a few flashbacks of him at home, eating, reading, you know, talking with us.
What's your fondest memory? Which memory of him?
Yeah, very difficult. I mean, he was an ordinary African father who just allowed us to play around him. So he was, when he came home, he was like any other father, you know. He just allowed us. He would be working, reading, or eating, and we were just around him.
Okay, so let's talk about the 1966 coup. You said you remember it. What exactly do you remember?
I remember what we went through as a family, how we had to leave the house with nothing except the clothes on our bodies. I remember the soldiers taking us from one place to another. And then, of course, finally being taken to the police headquarters, and the Egyptian embassy staff came to take us to the airport. By the end of the day, a day full of adventures with the soldiers being taken from one place to another in the city. After that full day, we were taken to the airport, and eventually we boarded an Egypt Air flight for Cairo, where we sought refuge for the 10 years, almost 10 years after that. And then we came back here, of course. So there isn't much to remember as such. What has inspired me is Kwame Nkrumah's writings, his books, his speeches. Many people don't know that he wrote copiously, over 10 books, and many of the ideas and the words in the books are relevant today. What I'm interested in is making sure the younger generation is reintroduced to Kwame Nkrumah, is acquainted with his thoughts, his vision, and his mission. Because I seriously believe that his ideas could help us today. We are not saying we should imitate them, you know, to the letter, but we need to adapt to today's changing circumstances what he stood for, on what he tried to do. Political independence and then economic independence. And that can only happen when we are united as African people, not just the continent, but Africans all over the world. And this is the only way for Africans to be able to regain our dignity, control our resources, our economies. So we have some work to do, and that's why I feel younger people need to understand that. We began with getting our national liberation, but the journey continues because we need to eradicate poverty, we need to build up our infrastructure, we need to cultivate the land all over, turn this big Sahara in the middle of our continent into a very productive uh, land. Could give us energy, vegetation, you name it. So we, we, we need to understand what the pioneers of our freedom were thinking about, what their plan was, because needless to say, the mission is incomplete. We don't have economic independence as we speak, and we can only have it through unity. So that is what keeps me interested in Kwame Nkrumah, not the history. I don't see him as history, but I see him as the future for Africa and Africans.
How close do you think we are to achieving Nkrumah's dream?
We are not close. We are not saying that we haven't tried, we haven't, done some things. We are on it, as we like to say in Ghana, but we are not close because there are certain things we have to do. And one of them is for Africans to work together, to plan together. You see, he said for political and economic unity of Africans, we need to do three main things. We need to plan our economies together and have economic unity. That, of course, entails common currency. It entails central bank of issue, one central bank, monetary zone, all that, you name it. In addition to the economic integration, we need to have a common defense strategy, a military command, a Pan-African military command, not different separate armies, different intelligences, no, we need to work together on that. Number three, we need to have a common position on issues globally and internationally, common or unified foreign policy. So that is how we need to work towards unifying ourselves as African states, as states united with the states of the Caribbean and with Africans everywhere, what we call the wider global family. And this, it's not a sentimental dream. It is a political project. So we have to approach it with that in mind. It's a political project to improve the lives of Africans. So it's not just a feeling that, oh, we are all Africans, the same race, we have to be together and work together. No, there's a little bit of that, but this is a political project. Colonialism was a political project that weakened us economically. Enslavement, the same thing. It was an economic and political project. So the solution has to be political. Unity is a serious political project that this generation and the younger one must take very seriously. It will be very difficult for us to work independently and alone and be able to solve our problems. Our economies are small. The sizes of our economies are very, very small. Countries talk in trillions about GDPs. We talk in billions. We are nowhere near the strength we should be economically to be able to deliver to our people. So unity is key for us to gain that economic independence that we fought for in political independence to achieve economic independence. There's no point having your own separate states, but being unable to manage your economies on your own, remaining dependent on others to balance your books and your budgets. That doesn't make sense. and it opens us up to serious exploitation of our resources, material and even human resources. So this generation has a mission to accomplish, and I believe Kwame Nkrumah articulates it simply and beautifully. So let us get ourselves reacquainted with his message and his ideas. Not what Samia Nkrumah is saying about him, but what he actually said, his own words.
Do you think, what in your opinion, do you think the 1966 coup has a direct implication on Africa's economic dependence on the West?
Yes, indeed. Yes, it did, of course. It set us back decades in development because Ghana was a pioneer. Ghana's independence definitely um, influenced, inspired, and influenced many other countries in Africa to gain independence. And Kwame Nkrumah's famous declaration, the independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it is linked up with the total liberation of Africa. That declaration was almost, it wasn't a statement, it was a call to action, a promise, and